right, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Now that we're past the draft, we're past the undrafted free agent cycle, we're starting to get into rookie mini camps. We're starting to see what teams, at least the rookies, what they're going to look like at this preliminary stage. But if you take a step back, which we like to do on this channel, and look at the data and look at the strategies teams have used, the Kansas City Chiefs have pulled off an incredible job. It's almost unprecedented. Again, we're going to break down the analytics in just a second, but this is great work by the Chiefs front office, the Chiefs organization. But first, I'm Nick. That's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, one of the things that happens every single offseason is that teams fall in love and the media falls in love with certain teams and strategies and say, oh, this team, they won the offseason. They get an A+, or for whatever reason. Maybe they signed a quarterback, or maybe they had 2 first-round picks, and so they had a couple first-rounders. For whatever reason, we see it all the time. But despite what the media says, the teams that win consistently, like the Kansas City Chiefs, have a clear and obvious approach. And what the Chiefs have done the past basically half decade or so is generate more raw value. They get more return on their investment than any other franchise by far. It's why they win more than every other franchise the past half decade by far. And when you look at what they did over the course of the 2025 NFL draft, we're going to go into the data here just a second. In fact, if you want to go ahead and pull up our first chart here, total draft value, you'll see why. So we took a sample of the teams here. This is about half of them. We didn't go through every single team because the chart would get too busy. But there are really only 2 teams that generated a lot of value from the NFL draft. And by value, what we looked at is where a team selected a player versus where they were slotted in their big board ranking. So if they were, let's say, the 50th best player on the big board and they were picked at number 100, that 50 delta would be the value generated by the team. And we took that 50 delta, compared it to the draft chart. A lot of numbers, a lot of stuff. We can go into it if people really care. But the reality is there's 2 teams that did a great job of value in the NFL draft: the Kansas City Chiefs and, ironically, the Las Vegas Raiders. Most of the other teams really kind of struggled, which shouldn't surprise you because most teams, they don't draft for value. They don't draft for best player available. They draft for need. So teams reach, right? They really need a wide receiver. So even though there's no good ones available in the second round, they pick a 4th round wide receiver, right? We see it all the time. That's what losing teams, and most teams, right, are average to losing. That's what they do. The Kansas City Chiefs, and they've done this every single draft, every single offseason, is they find a way to generate more value than any other team. You can see on the screen there, they generated about 650 points of value. Now that's equivalent of another first round pick. That's the equivalent of another second round pick and 2 third-round picks, right? There's a bunch of different combinations you could go there. But the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that went to the Super Bowl, again, 3 straight years in the Super Bowl, by the way they drafted, they basically created enough value that's equivalent to getting another first-round pick for free, or getting 2 second-round picks for free, or getting a second-round pick and 2 third-round picks for free. That's what the Chiefs did in this draft. But it's even crazier than that because it's important, being the Chiefs obviously drafting late in the first round. They didn't have a lot of draft capital to begin with, again, because they drafted so late. And let's go to our next chart here. This is where it really jumps off the page. This is what's really important. The return on draft capital. And you can just look at this as just a return on investment, just a typical ROI calculation. What is your draft capital and how much value did you get out of it? You can see right here, the Kansas City Chiefs got 50% is the return on their draft capital. There is no one even remotely close, right? The difference between number 1, the Chiefs, and the Raiders at number 2 is 25%. That's absolutely bonkers. There's no one in the Chiefs stratosphere. If you want to know why the Chiefs have won and will continue to win, obviously number 15, big part of it, understand this is why. They get more return on their capital, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in free agency, whether it's undrafted free agents. Whatever it may be, the Chiefs generate more return than anybody else. This is how you win. Everyone starts with the same amount of draft picks. Everyone gets 1 first-round pick. Everyone gets 1 second-round pick. Everyone gets 1 third-round pick, and so on. Everyone has the same salary cap constraints. Everybody's going to be under the same number. Why do teams like the Kansas City Chiefs always seem to win despite having that same constraints and even disadvantages drafting late, playing first place schedules year after year? It is this. It is getting more return on their capital, more return on their draft capital, more return on every form of capital than any other team, and it's not even close. This is why the Chiefs have won and will continue to win for years to come. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this, but Chiefs Kingdom. In the comment section below, what is you, or who I should say, who was your favorite draft pick by the Kansas City Chiefs? They obviously had a lot of really good ones, and we've covered some since the draft, but we want to know and hear from you guys. who's the one player that you really like the Chiefs picked up? Whether it was a great value, great fit, or you just liked them for whatever reason, give us your favorite Kansas City Chiefs draft pick and put them in the comment section below. But Mize, enough from me. Throwing it over to you now. What are your thoughts on just everything with the Kansas City Chiefs right now?
Yeah, Nick, I think one thing that you break on or talk about in this that's really stands out to me is you look at a team like the Raiders versus the Chiefs. The Raiders, perennially, I think they're a franchise that's getting better, but they've been below average for a while. They've been drafting very high in drafts for a long time. And obviously, the Chiefs drafting much lower than them. For the Chiefs to beat them out on value, for the Chiefs to beat all these teams out on value, is very, very impressive to me because I think that's the most important part is when you look at the Jimmy Johnson draft value chart, number one overall pick versus the number 32 pick, the last pick in the first round, is a pretty substantial difference. It really drops off after those first five picks. There's a pretty sharp drop. And then even all the way back to number 32, it really is a substantial difference. So for the Chiefs to take what they're given continually, this is what makes the good teams the best teams is, hey, you've started to win. Your ability to have more draft capital as far as be higher position in the draft is going to go down. What are you going to do about it? Are you able to pivot and have a better strategy there? Are you able to do things that benefit you in that way? And I think the Chiefs have really capitalized that and really kind of molded it into their own draft strategy and really just done a great job at doing it. And I think I love what the Chiefs has done in their draft. And I can see the value on paper. You look at what they do in the first round. Okay, they're pick number 32, last in the draft. What do? They go out and they get someone with really high potential in tackle Josh Simmons. The only knock on him is he's coming back from an injury, probably part of the reason why he slid the way he did. But the Chiefs, you're so good. You have the ability to gamble on somebody like that. You don't need them to come in and start day one. This is a guy that really, is a great pick for the Chiefs. Then they go through and do it again and again and again. They get value guys. They are able to pick up people who slide. And it's, a rich get richer mentality. When you already have a good team, it's easy to wait for the value to come to you, so to speak. It's kind of hard to, if you're a team that needs a quarterback, so to speak. If you were, the New York Giants or the Titans or somebody this year, they really needed a quarterback, and you're like, oh, okay, I got to get a quarterback. I can't wait for someone to fall to me. First of all, you're really high up in the draft, anyways, but you got to wait for someone to come to you. Doesn't always play out in your favor. When you're good like the Chiefs and you can wait and be patient, it develops a really great draft strategy. And I think that's what we're seeing so far from the Chiefs here. So these guys, their ability to convert the value, which inherently is lower than everybody else because of how good they are. They're starting off from behind the eight ball, but they're able to jump and turn that into something that is so much higher. In the graphs you showed, their return is so much higher than everyone else. That's the key here. I think that's the secret sauce. That's what makes the Chiefs so good. And that is why what they've done here is so impressive to me in particular.
Yeah, when going into the numbers here to understand how significant the Chiefs have done again, drafting towards the end of the first round, like they've done every year for the basically 6 years now, is it's incredibly hard to get a lot of value, a high value score. For example, a difference of five positions, let's say between 10 and 5 in the top 10, is worth we'll call it about rounding up about 400 points according to the value chart. So you're looking at 400 points of value if at number 10 you get the fifth best player in the draft, right? If at number 32, you get the 22nd best player in the draft, we're talking 10 points there. You're only really, in terms of your value score, is only about, it's a little less actually, to 200 points, right? So as you get later in the first round, the ability to generate value drops dramatically, and that continues for each of the following rounds. So what the Chiefs did is absolutely incredible. They generated more value than anybody else. This is why their return is absolutely bonkers. They generated more value than anybody else, despite being in the second hardest position of any team in the NFL to get a high value score, right? This is why it's so bonkers. They basically beat everyone at the game despite being the worst position, right? This is it's like winning a race when it's, how the people say you got to, usually start first or second, you're in a good position. If you started at the very back of the pack and you still win the race by big margins, that usually means you're just significantly faster and better than everybody else. That's what the Chiefs did, and that's what they've done for years. This isn't new, folks. This is what the Chiefs do, and they do it so much better than everybody else. Even the other teams, we look at the Rams that are very smart. Big fans of the Rams. Sean McVay, less need on this channel. No hate on the Rams whatsoever. Even they don't have a positive value score because even they, at different times, are forced to reach a little bit because they have a need or for whatever reason, right? Or they don't find the steals, or they put themselves in a position where they couldn't take advantage of a steal. The Chiefs never fall for that. They selectively trade up and trade back and are always generating value. And value, again, this is very important, is just an indication of you getting a better player than you should have, right? That's the important thing. The Chiefs got a better player basically throughout the entire draft than they should have almost every single time. And that's how you win. The NFL is structured so that way the teams that are the top 2, 3 teams in the NFL are always going to get the bottom, 30, 31, 32 teams in the first round and for each of the following rounds. What the Chiefs have done is essentially broke the code, right? They're going to be pick number 31 or 32, and they're going to pick the 20th best player every single time. So even though they're the second or best team in football year after year after year, they're picking players as if they're, barely a wild card team or they just missed the playoffs. That's an incredible advantage, and that gives the Chiefs season after season after season more firepower, more depth, more flexibility than any other franchise. I am just shocked that no other NFL team has caught up to the Chiefs yet in terms of understanding this is what Kansas City is doing. Because, again, it's easy to say we're drafting best player available. We're not going to just reach for people. But every other team does it every single season. Let's give the Raiders a little credit. They have an entire new leadership staff, who, of course, Tom Brady's involved, Spy Tech, Pete Carroll, and they're doing a halfway competent job in Las Vegas finally after years of not being competent. But mostly NFL really struggles. In fact, the best drafting teams are usually right around zero in terms of their value. The Chiefs knock it out of the park. We fall in love, like I said in the opening here, in the media with, oh, what first round pick was great, what draft trade was great, oh, did the team get a quarterback? And look, that's great stuff. It generates headlines. But the teams that win, that whether it's titles, regular season games, the things that matter, winning football games, are the teams that generate more value, which is code for getting better players than they should. And there's no team in the NFL that does it even remotely as good as the Kansas City Chiefs.